My creative practice, it's informed by, I have a background, an undergraduate background in anthropology, and I think in a lot of ways it's informed by that in terms of just, I'm interested in lots of sort of cultural situations and cultural experiences and cultural material or material culture. Visually, it can look very different, but there is that sort of that thread throughout that sort of grounds it as somehow sort of connected to sort of real life situations or things that you encounter in the world.
I started out as an art major, and through my schooling, I switched paths and started studying sociology. And so, whereas Yumi was anthropology and went into visual arts, I was visual arts and went into sociology. And so, when we found each other for this project, we kind of clicked.
Yeah.
And there was something immediate in terms of our shared interest in excavating this story about the Filipino Rough Riders.
So we know that Buffalo Bill's Wild West hired them in 1899, and then in 1900, 5 more Filipinos joined, so 5 men. So by the end of, or by the beginning of the 1900 season, there were 8 Filipinos in total.
And so they were folded into the Buffalo Bill Wild West show at a key moment in the expansion of US empire. And so Cody, Buffalo Bill Cody, the goal of the show was to bring in the new types of our so-called strange new people of our colonial possessions. And so we know that they were participants in the show. They rode horses along with the other troops or groups of Rough Riders. But unlike the other groups that were celebrated and like receiving applause, when they stepped out into those arenas, they met a collective hiss or this booing from the crowd. And so for us to try to put ourselves in their shoes and to understand like what it had felt like to be, you know, booed by
10,000 people.
10,000 people.
For example.
It is about their story, but also the ways in which their story is tied to our story.
Stories, yeah. Our own experience as Filipino Americans, of course, you know, kind of gives a little bit of nuance, I think, to why we're invested in this research and also how we go about doing it.
And so in some ways that search for identifying this group of riders, locating their names and finding their stories. And the question is, how can they exist, or how do they exist in an archive that was not meant for them?
We're playing off the idea of the marquee, right? Sort of the movie, the theater marquee. So there'll be 3 iterations of that throughout the museum. One that actually has the title, We Are Coming, almost like the name of the show, right? Like if you were to go to a theater. And then 2 other sort of sites will rotate the names. So at any given point, there will be 4 names out of the 8. And over the course of the exhibition, it'll cycle through all 8 names, and it'll also cycle through different spellings of their names, because that's another thing as an immigrant. It's like you contend with the mispronunciations and the misspellings of your name over and over and over again, and some were more so than others.
The title, We Are Coming, is a play on the phrase that the show used, I am coming. And so, do you want to describe the lithograph?
Yeah, so it's just a color lithograph, and it's Buffalo Bill's portrait in the sort of medallion, and behind him are stampeding bison, and all it says beneath it is, I am coming. And the implication is that he was so famous at that point that you didn't need to say Buffalo Bill's Wild West is coming, this is Buffalo Bill. It was like weirdly messianic, but he was that famous. So we're playing on that language, but by sort of flipping it, taking the I, the sort of the singular, and making it the collective we, to these people who have been somehow sidelined historically, and now sort of refocusing it on them, that it becomes a real sort of inversion of whose stories get told in that big narrative.
And so, you know, the goal for those moving through the museum is to ask that question about belonging, ask questions about insider-outsider group dynamics and what it means to be part of something with someone else.